My name is Karen Mills, and I will be your host for today's executive webinar, Co-Creation, the Hidden Disruption in IoT. I will now like to introduce our speaker for today, Patrick Mahaffey, CEO of Room 5. Patrick has a history of building and deploying successful commercial products. His teams have won the CIO Value Award from CIO Magazine, the Stevie Award for Most Innovative Product at the American Business Awards, and the Mortgage Technology 10X Award for the product with the highest bottom line impact. That's Patrick and his team. Additionally, Patrick has led the most award-winning consulting organization in the history of artificial intelligence, winning over 50 Most Innovative Application of Artificial Intelligence awards, 7 times more than the nearest competitor, IBM. Please welcome Patrick Mahaffey.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your coming today, and I promise to go through the I Love Me slides very quickly. I usually don't even do a corporate slide, but it turns out that, much to my chagrin, not everybody knows who Room 5 is. So just a little quick background. We make smart connected products and applications for customers. We do that based, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining what I mean by that category because the presentation goes in depth about exactly what do we mean by a smart connected product. But that's all based on a long history, a 19+ years history of being in the mobile, cloud, and embedded software. We do come from a Swedish background, so we have a strong Swedish engineering background. And we work at every level from the framework level in Android on the mobile side to the firmware and embedded side, all the way up the stack to the user experience piece. And again, we've taken that deep history of engineering and used it to build the products for a lot of our customers. Now, a lot of the work that we do is under NDA. We work for Amazon, Micron, Intel, Google Advanced Labs, and much of the stuff we do, we of course can't talk about at all. So we are going to do a case study today, though, where we've gotten permission to talk very specifically about building a smart connected product. So I'm kind of excited about that because usually when I talk about the company, I have to say, yeah, we've done a lot of cool things. I can't tell you anything about them. So we will be talking today very specifically about real engineering for the Internet of Things. And this is important to me. It's sort of more than a tagline because one of the things that we found out when we started looking at the IoT and talking about this space was that there were a lot of people pontificating about it and talking about what it meant and what it would require. And any time we ask people to raise their hand and say who's actually doing anything in the IoT, who's building products or applications or anything more than platforms or proof of concepts, nobody would raise their hand. And so, we built a significant number of real applications in this space. And so we're trying to create a forum. This isn't about, just letting you know who Room 5 is and pitching what we do. We're trying to create a community of practitioners, right? So moving from pontificating to practicing this art. And our blog, the meetups we're hosting, everything is basically centered around creating a community of real practitioners of this. Moving into the IoT and specifically talking about that, there's so much hype in this space right now and even contention over what it means. So everybody's heard the numbers. Cisco says there's going to be $19 trillion in value creation by 2020 with 50 billion connected devices, and GE's talking about $10 trillion in the industrial internet. And, it's clear that we are in the middle of what is commonly called the hype cycle. And, for those who aren't familiar with this, it's basically a technology starts getting visibility over time. It comes to the peak of inflated expectations, it drops down into disillusionment with the technology, and then eventually, becomes part of our everyday life. Now, Gartner produced their hype cycle for the year 2014, and the Internet of Things was at the very top. It was the most hyped technology on their view of 2014. So, you're hearing a lot about it. There's a huge number of inflated expectations. And like I said, we're hearing a lot of pontification about it without really, again, on our view, seeing anybody saying anything that are doing anything that's very significant, right? But one thing that we do want to make clear is that for all of that, just because we're in a hype cycle doesn't mean that real disruption is not occurring. And in areas, that are as diverse as home automation, and very particularly, I mean, everybody knows Nest, right? Who is sort of changing how you manage and maintain your home with regard to their smart thermostats and giving you better control over that. To IBIS Networks, who is more focused on the enterprise side, but on the energy management and predictive maintenance and controlling costs that way, to Goji, who is, with their smart lock, really changing the way people, locks have been built for 4,000 years, and they're changing the way that people think about access to their home and securing their home. So just because these things are being hyped does not mean that there aren't people out there with really disruptive and important technologies. So one of the things is I would like to do what I said we'd do earlier, which is to do just a brief definition and talk about smart connected products versus the IoT. So, again, today we believe that people talk about the Internet of Things, and there's a lot of space in there. There's a lot of empty space. And we always talk about all the things that need to happen before the IoT can actually take off, like shared standard protocols, a rich semantic language for communication, a security model that everybody can adopt. And those are going to be a long time coming, probably. And again, there's going to be a lot that transpires. But smart connected products are being built today. There are people today building smart connected products that are disruptive in their industries. And, again, there are the people who are disrupting, and there are people who are being disrupted. And in this model, our position when we're speaking with our customers is you definitely want to be the Uber in this model, not the yellow cab, right? You definitely want to be doing the disrupting and not be the person who is disrupted. And one of the things about disruption today particularly is that in the old model, if, I'll take that lock example and just work it through. If you were going to build something innovative in the lock space, there were very few people who were doing that. It was very expensive to do and to design. And again, to build the factories, to do all of that stuff, all of the things that you needed to do was very expensive. Today in the world, with digital disruption and the eruption of smart products, first of all, you have a global group of innovators. So you have 10 times the number of innovators, at least, out there. The costs of doing various things due to outsourcing and smarter ways of building and manufacturing products has come down by order of magnitude. And the power available to people is 100 times what it was with cloud and other methods of accessing the things that you need. So again, there are more disruptors out there than ever before. What we believe is this is a real moment of inflection. This is like a who dares wins moment. So, for the startups and the two guys in a garage and the people who are really looking to innovate and disrupt as the beginning of their model, there are tremendous opportunities right now in the market. And for people who are already category leaders in their space, we believe you really are going to need to future-proof your product. But that's very difficult to do because, again, organizations are aligned to do what they do. And so to actually move aggressively and to try, it's disrupting yourself, right? And nobody likes to be disrupted. when they have a large functioning organization. Um, I think the best example of this from the past, if you look at where the technology is e-commerce. When e-commerce first came out and Amazon came onto the scene, Amazon was, super aggressive. They had a vision, they had a set of goals, and very few established companies could move quickly enough to compete with the Amazons, and they were trying to figure out what it would mean for them, and they really allowed Amazon to gain a tremendous foothold and tremendous acceleration. And now Walmart, the number one retailer in the world, considers Amazon to be their single largest threat. And yeah, it took some time from the introduction of e-commerce to be at this point, but it was tremendously disruptive, and it turned out to be critically important, right? Everybody had to get on board. Again, we believe that this is that sort of inflection point. They have some very particular challenges. They often design and bend and press metal for a living. They're not manufacturers of advanced electronics, much less smart connected products, which is very specialized. And we've talked to a lot of these folks, right? These are folks that we've spoken with, and their view is that they're waiting for leaders to emerge in the space to grow their capability by acquisition, right? Well, again, that may be a good strategy. With the valuations we're seeing for some of these products, though, they may end up being acquired by these startups, and that's no joke. I'm not sure that that's going to be a winning strategy, but that's certainly what a lot of leaders in the space are doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do an actual case study of building a smart product so that we can get sort of to the heart of what we're talking about. And the real practice of this discipline. So we're going to talk about building a truly smart and connected lock. The bulk of locks built today can really be simply described with a line drawing. They're manufactured by traditional manufacturers who stamp and bend metal, right? Who have a particular specialty, and the underlying technology is 4,000 years old. When you transform a lock into a smart lock, you have an explosion in complexity. So if building a lock is a line drawing, building a smart lock is a multi-dimensional sphere where some of those dimensions are connectivity, cloud architecture, basic functionality of the lock, networks, power management, security, video processing. It's extraordinary what kind of combinatorial explosion you have when you go from a lock to a smart lock. When the Goji team began building out the production version of their lock, they discovered that the required skills were much more extensive than they'd imagined. The smart lock that they'd thought of was basically a smartphone on a door. That's why it was so familiar to us. We come from a background of building phones and devices, and when we looked at what they were proposing to do and the function points and everything that had to happen, again, we realized this was more or less than a smartphone on a door. If we can generalize this to a problem statement, we could say, look, building a smart connected product is extremely difficult. It requires deep technical expertise and experience in virtually every design discipline. Industrial design, hardware design, embedded development, user experience, critically important, mobile, cloud, image processing. So how do you go about putting together a high-performance team to quickly and effectively bring your product to market, to make sure that you get to market before you're disrupted? Well, the traditional way is that there are two approaches. One is you build a team, and that's great. You keep the expertise in-house, you have better control over the project. The downside to that, and anybody who's done that, imagine building a team with all of these expertise pieces in-house, bringing in designers of things that you've never done before, and putting together a high-performance team to produce a commercial product. That is an extraordinarily difficult task and has a super high risk of failure, as well as being slow and expensive. You could outsource it. That has some time to market advantages, right? It probably has some long-term cost advantages, but if this is truly core to what you're doing, if you're disrupting an industry, um, this is going to be core to what you do, and you can't afford to just outsource all of your development of this product. So, what we found in the space of smart connected products that there's a third way, which we now call co-creation, that basically you need to adopt if you're going to be successful building these products. And we found this out the hard way, right? Because we've built actually a number of products in this space now. Some of them have been great successes. Some of them have been very tough learning experiences. And so this is predicated, not on the theory of how you do this, but actually on the practice of how you build these. Now, I called it radical collaboration, and that wasn't popular necessarily with my coworkers who were afraid that the clients would think that we were going to try and overthrow their engineering department. But it's really true that on my view, a radically collaborative view, and that means like working shoulder to shoulder as a team together, can accelerate time to market, reduce your risk, and reduce your cost. So again, what does that mean? What do I mean very specifically by radical collaboration, right? That's, again, it's still at the level of sort of a buzzword. So I'm going to get very specific and very prescriptive and realize that any one of the things that we're going to be talking about as I go through this could be a webinar in itself, and actually more than that, it could be a class in any one of these things. So I'm going to move through them pretty quickly. But what is the one most important thing that we found for project success? The single thing that without it, you're at great risk. Well, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, right? Because everybody who's ever developed anything will say, well, yeah, that's obvious. We know all about that, right? You've got to have a great use case to start with. But we have been amazed at the number of times that we've been approached by people who have failed to consider this adequately before embarking on a project. And, they are building something because it's cool, or most importantly, and most often in the case of market leaders, it's really interesting because they are basically looking to just extend a little what they do. They already do things a certain way. They want to just now, a classic example of this in locks is the traditional lock companies said, okay, mobile's important. I'm going to make a lock that I can open with my phone. Well, okay, turns out that the user experience of just being able to open a lock with your phone is actually, in a lot of cases, a degradation of what it is to use a key, right? So it's not a compelling enough use case to disrupt anything. It's just extending what you already do. So you need to start with a compelling use case. From there, you need to lead with user experience, right? And, there are so many implications of actually creating a user experience-led project. Again, most of the project we see in this space, sometimes I feel like I'm just saying things that, well, this is so obvious that if you can't delight your customer with this new product, then what's the use, right? But we do see time and again that these projects are being led from engineering out, and that they just don't have the experience or the organization to start with UX and work their way down to the engineering. And so again, we're starting, with limited use cases, with an engineering team without a lot of user experience, and they haven't budgeted or built in anything for, what it would be to build a product that delighted the customer. Once you've got those two down, you've got a use case that's compelling and disruptive, you've built a product that your customers are going to love and that's going to delight them and that really extends the experience of, going in and out of your home, then you define your architecture and your team. Then you get to the point where who you need, right? What it's going to look like from a real design point of view and who you need to pull in to build it. One of the things that's the most difficult, and again, like I said, I feel like all of these could be a webinar in themselves. one of the most difficult things is for people in established organizations to be clear and honest about what they do well, what's in their power zone and what's not. But if you can do that, you can then define the best partners and the best partners available within your budget or who are available to fill in those gaps. So I'm going to be very prescriptive now, and like I said, I could take a long time on each of these, but here are 8 steps to, in our view, to co-creating success. Hire intact teams when possible. Don't try, if you have a QA lack on your side, don't try and pull in a bunch of people through staff augmentation and think that you're going to end up with a high performance team that can integrate with your high performance team. When possible, if you're filling a gap for functionality or some functional development, hire an intact team who are used to working together and who can quickly integrate with your team rather than to have to form and storm and all of that stuff themselves. Realize that supply chain and partner management is not best played as a zero-sum game. Again, easy thing to say. What we found, of course, is that there's years of practice on both sides of trying to negotiate the best deal. The consultant wants the most money they can possibly get out of the engagement, and the procurement department wants to beat them down to nothing, right? And so when you start with that, you often end up losing on both sides. You have to have collaborative intention. Again, that goes to the above to a large degree, but it means that you're not just talking about collaboration, you're really intent from the beginning on not having a vendor and customer relationship, but on building a high performance team and all of the things that means, like truthfulness, right? This is difficult on both sides because you're trained as a consultant that what you're supposed to do is to make your your customer look good no matter what, right? And maybe you're not as blunt as you need to be. And on the other side, similarly, you never admit to a vendor that it's your fault, right? Because who knows what could happen then. So that degree of truthfulness that's required for real radical collaboration is required for co-creating success. Accountability, the same thing. Everybody has to be less worried about defending their territory and what they do and looking good, and they need to be accountable for their work, right? And accept help if they need it. Everyone needs to be aware of the above. What does that mean? That means that, even though this all seems really obvious when I walk down it, organizations today are not set up to interact this way together. And you need to be aware of the existing practices and how they work against this, and you need to really work at all times to make sure that you are working shoulder to shoulder. Problem solving, this is important, right? Because again, a lot of times, we're on the side where the customer is saying, look, I brought these guys in for their specific expertise. They need to solve this problem. I've had my own team say to me, well, no, this project was a success. We delivered everything we were supposed to. I say, how can it be a success? The project failed. Well, it wasn't us, right? We did all our stuff. It was the customer. You need to work together and collaboratively to solve problems as a team. Finally, and actually, talk about one that could have a whole seminar. You need to create a contractual vehicle that supports the previous 7 steps, because for all the talk, right, everybody on the consulting side wants a T&M engagement, with as loose a definition as possible. Everyone on the client side wants tight deliverables, with a fixed price that's locked down to the cent. And you need to figure out a way to create contractual vehicles. And we do have some ideas about that, but again, it's too short we've learned a lot about that, kind of too short a webinar to go through all of the details, but you need to create a contractual vehicle that supports these previous steps, and that's super important. So, one of our tips that we've learned is complex does not have to be complicated. What do we mean by that? Well, complex means that, something has a lot of moving parts and, has a lot of pieces that are interwoven and interdependent. Complicated means difficult and hard to understand, explain, or deal with, right? So just because something has many different connected parts doesn't mean it's hard to understand, explain, or deal with. It's only complicated if you make it complicated. You need to make the complex simple to deal with. And we think that those 8 steps go a long way to helping you do that on the project. Will you succeed? Well, our experience is if you follow those steps, your chances of success are greatly improved. Again, nobody can ever guarantee 100% success, but we believe that following those steps will give you the best chance of a good outcome on your project. So, Karen, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Thank you, Patrick. We had one question come in. The question is, what types of new revenue streams can IoT bring?
So that's a great question. That goes back to the disruption. And one of the things that we see, I'll just take Goji as an example. We actually have a number of examples that I can't give under NDA, but being able to take something that before you simply sold as a lock and turn it into something where you can also provide a service, right? Whether it's additional virtual keys, monitoring and reporting, etc. We're seeing various revenue streams and people moving from the idea of selling a product to selling a subscription or selling a valuable service and value add. And we're seeing that in a number of areas. Like I said, I wish I could be a little more forthcoming, but we see that a lot.
Thank you. We have another question that came in earlier via email. We are in the middle of an acquisition and only just moving to the cloud. Do you know of any other companies in a similar situation who was able to start with IoT, and how did they do it?
Yeah, that's another great question. I mean, departments are overloaded, and they're usually working on last year's most hyped technology, right? So part of that is internal and speaks to your own priorities, but that's part of the reason you engage a company like Room 5 is because, if you really believe that this is a disruptive moment and it's sort of, you need to move or potentially be disrupted, then bring in a partner that can help you start at least with a compelling use case to see if this should move up your rank order. You know what I mean? If this should actually maybe go ahead of some of the other work that you're doing. And that's easy to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. That's all the time we have for now. In closing, we really would like to thank our audience for your participation, and we would appreciate it if you could provide your feedback via our survey to help us improve future webinars. And also, if you have additional questions or wish to schedule a one-on-one strategy session with Patrick or use case development with Eric Young, our CTO, please contact me, Karen Mills. My email is karen.mills@room5.com. Thank you.